you see that?
Are you sharing your screen?
Thanks. Yeah, can you see it? No.
I don't see it. Okay, I see it.
Okay.
Yes,
Thanks for being willing to participate in this test. I appreciate it. So as a reminder, this Bug Boss Fighter is part of our small game programs, just to keep things interesting throughout the year.
hmm
We sent the invite out 50 to respond, although I'd like some feedback because I'll be honest, this is back-to-back losses for the Bug Bosses. So maybe the crowd's a little bit too big. I'm not sure. We can discuss that. If anybody has any advice, please email me, link.clark@bugcrowd.com.
I
Um,
think from sorry, I
no, go
think
ahead.
from 50 you could make it to 25. I know the crowd is very big on Buck crowd, but 50
Yeah,
against two is
it's tough.
it's
Yeah.
50 brains against two brains. This is how I see it.
Yeah,
And
no,
maybe
that's
if you
fair.
might have a live leaderboard, so bug bosses can see what's happening. That might make things more interesting because we like, okay, the crowd is hacking
It's
actively,
yeah, that's a
and we
good
have to
point.
speed up.
Yeah, I have to look into that. I think I mean, I think people would like a live leaderboard for the platform in general. So we'll see what we can come up with. It was pretty good. This is more valid submissions from this round than from the previous one, which is a very good sign. And these were the folks who were able to defeat you two. And lastly, like I said, if you have recommendations or ideas, because the other problem we noticed too, somebody else would have won first place, but
hmm
their bugs just didn't get validated in time, and they ended up, I think, earning like $20,000, and they easily would have been first place, but it just took longer on their programs for everything to get cleared, and so obviously they weren't able to win. So we were thinking about maybe pushing it to 3 weeks for the next one, which will probably be in May. But any advice, feel free to reach out. Oh, do you have your crown?
Yeah, I have my crowd. Let's see.
Nice. Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool.
It looks good.
Yeah, it
Thank you
does
for
look good.
sending this.
Of course.
Yeah,
And jump in.
yeah. I was saying, thank you for participating in this event. And sorry, El Mahdi couldn't attend because he lives in a different time zone, and it's very, very late for him to join this. So we lost it, and the crowd was very good, I think. So we found we did not find much bugs because sometimes it's okay for everyone else to struggle finding bugs. I think it's the part of the process. So we did find something which was very interesting. It was on a public program on Bugcrowd, and it was a remote code execution. I don't think I might be able to share a lot of details because it's in a different product, and maybe it's a 0 day or it's a misconfiguration which can be found on different programs as well. And we have not verified the vendor yet, but I'm just gonna show or demonstrate how much I can and share my thought process on how we found this. So the title is Remote Code Execution by Finding Third-Party Assets. So in order to find third-party assets, we need to do everything we can do via the recon process. By recon, I mean subdomain enumeration. A lot of people ignore census, but census plays a very important role for you to find different certificates and different host names. Using census, you can find host what your subfinder or AMAS tools cannot find, I think. And a lot of people ignore what HTTPX can do for you. Like, for example, people just run it normally, like HTTPX, and it resolves the host. But I think there are different flags. I did not include them over here, but maybe I can tweet about it. So if you use HTTPX correctly, there are some flags which you can use and then resolve HTTP and HTTPS. Sometimes the tool itself, HTTPX, or normal flags, you miss the HTTP host. So I think it's important for you to use all the flags when you run HTTPX, and you might be able to find hosts which normally you would not be able to find using the normal flags. So moving forward, we were working on a wild scope public program on Bugcrowd, and the scope was like, it was a massive scope, like start@tess.com. I just named it as test because I did not want it to share the target. I don't think they might be comfortable. So we enumerated all the subdomains of test.com, and there were like I think unresolved subdomains were like 10 or 11,000. And then I did the HTTPX part and I enumerated which ones are alive and which ones are dead. So interestingly, we found a subdomain which, to my sense, it was like foramatic.tess.com. Like as soon as I read something which is unusual, like for example, the normal subdomains are like maybe like sales, my sales developer, and other kind of names. But this one, it says Photomatic. I'm not sure if I'm spelling it right, but it says something like it's a third party and it could be a third party software or something. So I got interested in this and I was like, let's check if this is a third party software because I like checking out third party softwares because I know companies just, you know, they pay for it. And I don't know if the third party software has been ever been tested or they have ever checked like if the software is good, it has any bugs or anything. So usually I like checking out those stuff. So in this competition, I was teaming up with Almadi, and Almadi is he doesn't like recon, and I like recon. That's why we collaborate together a lot, and we find a lot of bugs together because I'm the one doing the reconnaissance part, and then he's the one I send the leads to him, and I'm like, hey, can you check this? I think this can be useful. And then he's really, really, really good at checking the subdomain, like checking everything about it. So if I've sent him some lead or something, he checks completely, and then he's 90% of the time he comes with some bugs or something on it. And we have been doing this thing since last 3 years, and we have good progress. I think that's a good thing for you to collaborate with someone where the other person is not doing something and you're doing something and the other person is good at something which you're not good at. So I think with that thing helps you find bugs. So the subdomain, I sent it to him. I'm like, I'm 100% sure it's a third party software and I think it might have some bugs. And it even it looks like a panel and it even had sign up and login options on it. So I was like, interesting, it has a sign up on it. So I decided to sign up, and the panel looked like something like this. I have a screenshot over here. Sorry, I cannot share much details about it, but the panel looks something like this. And I'm like, why this panel is public? Because I don't think the usually what I do is the company, I try to understand what kind of business they're into. So, for example, this company, this was far away from the business they were doing. And I don't think any of the users this thing is any helpful because this looks like employee or developer thing, something like that. Because I don't think any employee, normal users are going to use this because it shares a lot of details like status, system, awaiting authorization, connection, awaited approval, and other stuff like this. So I was 100% sure this is not the, uh, it's not for users. It's definitely for employees or developers, or maybe it was accidentally made public and we got hands on to this third party software because before they could take it down. So we started to test this. I logged in and I was checking everything. I'm like, I definitely think this is an employee based stuff and it has system testing results. So it's more like a developer thing or something. So then we started doing our reconnaissance. I started playing around with this and then I sent it to Almadi as well. And he started checking the panel and other stuff like that. And then I decided to check the page source and I was like, let me Google this, what formatic or what kind of software this third party company is. And then I Googled it. And while browsing on Google, I came across on the first, when you Google something, it shows you relevant results. So I think on the second, on the third, on the Google search, I found like this is open source software. When I see something open source, I'm like, okay, this is definitely interesting because the code is open source and you can check whatever the software is running on the server. You can analyze the files, you can check whatever bugs it might had, or maybe pull request or pull request of whatever the bugs it had in the past, or maybe the company just did they fix it or they have the latest version of the software or no. So I downloaded the third party software on GitHub, and I think it was Almadi's idea because he did the reconnaissance. He found out that this is a open source panel, and he downloaded this panel locally on his computer, and then he ran the software locally, which was running on this company's, or which we found on this one. I'm sorry, I keep trying to until in my head I don't have to disclose the name, and it's hard. So we found this panel, and this was running on the server, and at the same time it was running on his computer, and he was checking it locally. Now we have access to a lot of requests and other kind of stuff which we did not have access to because we couldn't see the what kind of functionalities were running behind it. But now that we have it running locally on his computer, he was able to check, and he came up with an endpoint while checking the, I think, source code of this app, or while spidering it locally on his computer. Because normally you cannot spider because sometimes there's a WAF which avoids you to spider a lot of URLs and stuff. So we did that thing, and then later we realized that this thing has it had an endpoint, and this endpoint had a script like looking like thing which allows users to, not users, basically whatever whoever signs up, it allows you to run bash scripts on it client side. It says save client side auto update scripts, so basically it allows you to run the scripts on the client side. But we did not knew that this thing would be executed server side as well, unless until he downloaded the software locally. And then we tested the script panel locally on his on the software that he installed locally, and we tested the bash script. Like we were testing what happens if we execute malicious request on this. So it was obviously it's a bash thing, so we did some bash request and stuff, and then we hit the okay thing. And what happened next? Okay. Yes. So while running locally, we realized that when we run the script locally on the bash script section of that thing, it sends the request internally as well, and it executes whatever kind of request you're sending. So it was a remote code execution, and whatever users run on the client side, well, on the script panel over there, it was executing on the server side as well. And you could check it on the logs, which we had access to, because since we have the software, it's open source, and we included this in the proof of concept. It would be impossible for us to, get the bug without having the code open source. So with the code open source, we confirm that there is a RCE. When you run this with the malicious client side bash script, it executes the whatever payloads you're sending on the server, and then basically you have a remote code execution on the server as well. So we explain everything in a report, and it's still on pending because the company needs to verify that it's executing on their site locally as well. That's why I haven't disclosed much details, because it's new, and this is how we are able to find a remote code execution. So this was the bug.
Nice. So the one of the main takeaways then is the open source approach, like making sure you search for that, or that was just accidental in this case.
No, since you mentioned the takeaways, I think one of the takeaways which I learned last year is when you analyze a subdomain, or when you're checking a page source of a subdomain, make sure you check all the links. Like, for example, sometimes the page has the software is from this, and it has a line on it. So when you find such stuff, just make sure you Google things. And sometimes you might find something which is supposed to be, not public, or the company did not realize that this particular part of the software is public, and then you can use it and leverage it to attack the server. So I think when you analyze the subdomain, make sure you check if the if whatever services or whatever kind of things they're running, like tech framework they're running on the this third party software side, make sure it's not public, or any of the, it could be anything. It could be uh, the JavaScript, it could be a comment on the page, it could be anything which can lead you to have access. Just check GitHub, search on Google, make sure you do your reconnaissance nicely, and maybe you might find something which might look easy to you, because so others might have ignored it, and they might have not, checked, like search on the internet for the software. But most of the time, just so I found a lot of critical bugs just by searching the software and checking if this is accessible on the internet or no.
That's a good takeaway. Cool. Do you mind if I share? Is that your last slide?
Yeah.
Can I share? Oh, there. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't want
Oh, sorry. So yeah, I was saying similarly, when we were running this locally, we found out that there is an RCE when you have the script running on the local software of this thing, and then we tried this on the server side because the script endpoint was accessible on the target as well. And then we submitted all the proof we had for the triage team to be like, hey, this is the proof which we have, and we have the software running locally, and we think there is an RCE. Can you ask the team to confirm it as well? And the triager added this on a blocker, and let's see what happens now. But I think it's gonna be accepted because it's RCE, simple, straightforward RCE.
Cool.
Yeah, Link.
Great. I just wanted to share a couple of things, if I
Yeah,
can. Let's see, pull it up.